Two astronauts who've been stuck on the International Space Station for 7 months are having their stay extended yet again.
NASA has confirmed the two pilots will be waiting until at least March for a capsule to retrieve them. To help us understand the gravity of this situation, we're joined by former NASA astronaut Katie Coleman in Massachusetts. Katie, astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams have been stranded in space since June. Why on Earth or in space is it taking so long to bring them home?
Well, they've had a series of events that some might consider unfortunate, others fortunate, actually, which is they came up in a test vehicle, the first flight of the Boeing Starliner. And for the schedule and the most efficiency, they would check that out for about 10 days and head home. But because they saw some issues with some of the thrusters that actually control the spacecraft, it was decided that it was, if in a pinch, it definitely could have been their rescue ship. And at the same time, was it the safest way home? No, it wasn't, because I think people understood the problems better, but didn't necessarily have solutions that they were sure would work at the moment. So they brought the Boeing Spaceliner home empty, and Sonny and Butch stayed up there. And the next ship actually came up minus 2 people. So in other words, 2 people stayed on the ground, so that the next ship that came up was actually will then be the ship that they go home on.
Right.
So it's, sort of a trading back and forth. But, to go from, 2 months, they'd already been up there a few months. This is the thing we train for. This is, and especially people who are very experienced, like Sonny and Butch. I'm watching the video. I mean, Sonny's husband likes to say that space is her happy place.
Well, that's good when you're an astronaut. For the rest of us, it sounds like...
Helps to put that on your resume.
This is my worst nightmare, what these two are going through. But, as you say, they went up there for a week, they stayed for a year. Do they have enough supplies? And physically, is it OK on a human body to be in space for that long?
Well, what happens to the human body is something that we're definitely studying, and all of us, I myself spent 6 months up there, and we're all sort of human guinea pigs to find out, as we try to go further and further back to the moon and go to Mars, what does happen to the human body. And we've developed actually a lot of answers for things on Earth, which is, for osteoporosis, understanding that, I hate to say it, but exercise is here to stay, that it really does help keep people healthy. So there are risks like that, and at the same time, they're part of research that they're doing. And that's what we're always, the work on the station, when I was up there, it's just suddenly crystal clear to you. And I actually think, as news people who are always curious and want to know why and what and when, I think you would feel that way too. When you're up there, every minute feels useful. Every step that you get done on an experiment is one more step towards knowing more than we knew before, in a place that these are really unique experiments to do.
Katie, are they OK? Did they pack extra underwear? How do you wash clothes in space? How are they going to last all of this extra time? I'm slightly confused. I run out of clothes when I go away for 2-3 nights sometimes. Well,
I hate to tell you that I still pack, terribly for a trip, but to the space station, typically you've got 6 to 10 shirts for 6 months, for a 6-month trip like I was on, 6 pairs of pants. And I don't know, maybe it's the lack of gravity, but somehow things don't get as dirty up there. We do bring a bunch of underwear, but I won't actually say that most people bring some for every day, but somehow it all works out. And there are people on the ground at NASA who are constantly keeping track of what is the thing that we're going to run out of, and is it important, and of the important things, do we have enough? And certainly they're looking at this, and kept, with a new spacecraft from SpaceX coming up, a brand new spacecraft that hasn't flown before, they knew there could be some certification hiccups like they're seeing. And so this is actually part of what you can almost expect with a brand new spacecraft that hasn't flown before. And so I'm sure they've got extra things on board, and it is surprising and sometimes a little disappointing to know how little you really need to live. But up there, it's a magical place, and I think that people have really thought, and they themselves, the crew members, have thought about, what do I need to have with me to do here? What kind of communication means to be okay? And a lot of that has to do with talking to family and friends.
Yes. Oh, gosh, they'd be going to some deep places in their minds.
I hope they can get KO or some sort of streaming service up there.
I wonder if they're getting sick of each other, but we won't speculate on that now. Boeing's Starliner capsule failed to bring them back, as you say. So NASA's had to change plans. So what is the plan to actually retrieve the astronauts?
The plan is to come up on the next SpaceX capsule going up to the space station, which was going to be in February and now will be somewhere in the March, April timeframe. And that is because it's a new spacecraft. And, with a change like that, people might be concerned about, you asked about physical health. There's also mental health, too, I think you were alluding to. And we talk to our doctors fairly often. And, every couple of weeks, it depends on what's going on. Both kinds of doctors, and I tell people the only thing better than counseling is free counseling, because it is, it's a stressful experience to be up there. And, and I think talking things out with somebody who's not up there can be really, really useful. And that's offered to us. And our medical doctors know that we don't always have to get together and look at each other, and they'll say by video, so how are you? Oh, I'm fine. And so often they pull some surprises. When I was up there, I play in a band back on Earth, the astronaut band called Bandella. And for my doctor's visit, virtually, they brought the band to the doctor's office and we got to play music.
Oh, okay. That's random fact. Katie?
Katie, hang on, just quickly before we go, you don't get to talk to a former astronaut very often. There seems to be confusion about whether or not the Earth is round or flat. There was a fellow who went to Antarctica to find out if it was flat, Katie, and he spent $35,000 and found out that it's round. Clear it up once and for all. You've seen it. You're an astronaut. Is it flat?
Well, and actually you have a great picture of it. I was listening to that segment, and it is indeed round. I mean, there is this picture, but actually when you're in the space station and looking out, looking down, without this wide-angle lens here, I mean, it is so clear that you are in orbit around the Earth, and it is the most wonderful, amazing, non-flat place to be.
I just lost $20 on a bet.
Katie, I'm so sorry that my co-host just asked you that question to a former NASA astronaut. Is the Earth flat or round?
Katie, I think you guys would do great up there on the space station.
Oh.
You're sweating talking about it.
10 months with Dan, trapped in a small capsule with no washing machine.
And I brought one pair of underwear.
If it was the mission, you could do it.
Katie, I would need more.
Okay.
I'd need more than a band in the doctor's office, that's for sure. Merry Christmas. Thank you very much for your time today. It's great to meet you.
Thanks very much. Nice to meet you.
2 Chinese astronauts have set a new world record, or potentially space record, I think would be the accurate term, performing the longest ever spacewalk. Live to Nine's US correspondent Lauren Tomasi. Lauren, they just squeaked in and beat the record, mate.
They sure did, Dan, by 10 minutes. But 10 minutes is all that it takes. These 2 Chinese astronauts were from the Tiangong space station. They spent a whopping 9 hours and 6 minutes on their spacewalk. It beats the last record, which was set back in 2001 by a pair of US astronauts. And what did they do for 9 hours and 6 minutes, I hear you ask? Well, I would be floating out there having an existential crisis, but these 2, it turns out, were quite productive. They were working on the exterior of the space station there and also working on a space debris protection device, among a few other things. It really is the latest flex by the Chinese space program, who is aiming to have astronauts on the moon within the next few years, by 2030. But these 2 aren't the only pair of astronauts who have been hanging out for quite a long time in space. Our favourite astronauts, Butch and Sunny, well, they're going to be up there at the International Space Station for a little longer yet. NASA has announced there is another delay in them coming home. They now won't be returning to Earth until March, possibly into April, because SpaceX and NASA need a little more time to process the SpaceX Dragon crew flight, which is heading up to rescue them after their Boeing Starliner spaceship had a few troubles and had to return to Earth without them. So this, of course, is the pair that was heading up to space for a little more than a week. It's now going to be a little closer to a year. And Dan, I just can't help but think, if you were packing for space for a week, you'd only pack a certain amount of undies. So what happens when you got to be up there for a year?
Well, Lauren, you can go normal, inside out, backwards,
Well,
and backwards.
It only works for 4 weeks.
Yeah, so you can
Lauren,
rotate your 2 pairs.
This must be a girl thing. I mean, the men know instantly how to work the undies, but my thoughts exactly. They're packed for a week and they're there for a year.
Imagine the overtime pay, though. NASA would be sweating on that. 10 months of OT.
Of overtime, guys.
Oh, okay. We'll see you soon.
Hey there, Today fans. Sarah and...
What's my name again?
Oh my God. Carl.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel, though. Subscribe now for more news, special reports, and amazing Aussie stories.
And Carl misbehaving,
Whoa,
of course.
that never happens.
Always happens.
What's she talking about?